everyone. This is your teacher, Miss Mars, and on today's video lecture, I am going to continue discussing our last topic for the midterm coverage, and that is the second language acquisition of Stephen Krashen. So, in our previous unit, we already talked about Stephen Krashen in surface level. So, on today's video lecture, we are going to talk about him, specifically his SLA theory in details. I know you all are ready. Thus, without further ado, let's begin. All right, so now we have already with us our PowerPoint presentation. And as you can see the title, Stephen Krashen's Theory of Second Language Acquisition. So let's try to take a look into SLA class. We talk about SLA. It is a certain stage of a child's life where he or she is learning a new language, or that child already has an L1 or the first language. Now it's his stage already to learn or acquire rather another language. And that is why we call it the second language. And second language acquisition, SLA theory of Stephen Krashen. So before we go into details, let's try to take a look at first what is language acquisition. If we say language acquisition, actually it does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules. And it actually does not require tedious drill. Example, okay, I will give you an example as our comprehensible input. So when we were younger, of course, we are learning English as our second language, right? We were probably around 6 years old, that young. So even until now, we are still learning English. And when we say language acquisition, it is a stage where we just kind of imitate the language and we learn it because it's being used and we have an exposure of that language and we just naturally learn it. It's not something that is formal. If we say language acquisition, it's actually more or less we learn it because you have an exposure, you immerse in a speaking community, or probably people around you are using also that language. And that's how you acquire it. So acquisition class, it requires meaningful interaction in the target language. That's why I told you it comes so naturally. We call it natural communication. But when we learn English, before we learn it in school, we already have knowledge about it. For example, vocabulary, and even we can already create a very simple sentence. It may not be really correct in terms of the syntactic grammar, but still, we can try our very best to create a sentence or two, or a phrase, or a clause, and probably vocabulary. And the speakers here are actually not concerned with the form of their utterances, but they only focus more or less on the message, what they want to convey, and how they understand it, and how they would want their interlocutors to understand it. So that's actually one of the things that we have to remember if we say acquisition or if we say language acquisition. It comes so naturally. It's not tedious. It's also not formal. Also, the affective filter here is not high. It's very low in terms of affective filter because it comes so naturally. So there is no stress. There is no pressure in learning this language. Another example, you move to a different country. So originally you come from the Philippines and then you speak, let's say, only Filipino language. But then when you go to Middle East, you started learning Arabic, okay? Because your parents are there and they have to, you have to be with them and you study there, and then you are exposed to that kind of speaking community. And then when you try to interact with the locals, and during the stage of interaction, you learn something, you kind of use it and try to use it to convey message as well. Try to use what you have acquired from the locals or from your parents. you use it to convey message and that you would be able to express. That is an example of language acquisition. There is no formal instruction here, and it comes so naturally. A very good example of language acquisition is when we are trying to learn, or when we were learning our Cebuano Visayan language. That's our L1. And when we were learning our L1, we actually did not go to school, right, to learn it, but it comes so naturally. Eventually, we learn how to speak, we interact, and that's already our language. That is language acquisition. And in fact, if I am going to ask you in terms of the rules or grammatical terminologies or whatsoever, rules in terms of Cebuano Visayan, we have difficulty to actually explain it, because the thing is we can speak it, but we really don't learn it in school. That is why we don't have formal instruction, no formal training, but we can speak it. So the first question that we are going to take a look at is, what is comprehensible input? Earlier, I explained to you about language acquisition. And when I explained it, I also give you an example so that it would be easier for you to actually decipher or really grasp the meaning of language acquisition. And that is what is meant by comprehensible input. When we say comprehensible input, it's something that you give to your learners, you share to your learners to simplify a kind of complex concept. When we are trying to simplify a complex concept, we are creating a comprehensible, or we are feeding our learners with comprehensible inputs. Comprehensible meaning something that they can comprehend in their level. For example, and how could we do that? A very good example to do this is when we present an analogy, okay? Aside from we explain it in simple terms and then we get the gist or the meat of that thought, then you can explain it. But what if you want to go farther? Because if you notice your students, they are still confused. So what you are going to do is you will provide more, okay, more information that is comprehensible, or that is within their understanding. And for example, you are going to create an analogy. You will try to compare language learning into something, okay, into a certain phenomenon or a certain situation. Another example also is by giving example, real life example, and a lot more. You can compare, you can contrast. So there are so many ways to present our topic in the most comprehensive way possible. And it's just that if we really understand what we are talking, of course, it would be easier for us to cascade it to our learners because we know what we are talking about. So comprehensible input, the crucial and necessary ingredient for the acquisition of language. Imagine if the child does not understand the language that he or she is acquiring. For example, you're acquiring it, but there's no understanding at all. That means it's not gonna retain in the brain of the child. It will just pass by. And comprehensible input, students should be able to understand really. So the key term here is understanding, comprehending, so understand the essence of what is being said or presented to them. Very good examples when we conduct a lecture. If our lecture is so complex, it's very difficult to grasp, and then we don't provide our students comprehensible inputs. The thing is, what's going to happen, we will end our lecture with the students still having a lot of questions in their minds, and their minds are really like cloudy, and we don't kind of create clearance, or we don't make their mind straight in terms of the things that we are talking about. That's why comprehensible input is very important. Well, there are a lot of concepts that it's really difficult to explain it like purely words. So there are many ways to do that. We can compare, we can contrast, we can also, provide them context clues or clues. We can also give examples, analogy. So really good is when we give example. But you see that when your teacher would explain, it would say, okay, for example. So that means when the teacher starts to provide you with an example, that is an example already of comprehensible input. But then again, there is this challenge because sometimes the more that the teacher would give us example, the situation becomes more complicated. So as teachers, it is really our task or our responsibility to choose those examples, those concepts, and how could we, so we have to choose, and we have to really know how to simplify them so that our learners can understand. And language input that can be understood by listeners despite them not understanding all the words and structures in it. So that is comprehensible input. When everything is really so difficult to understand, but here it is, there's something that is presented to you and poof, okay? It's just explain that something really just explains everything, and your mind is already like you said this, that is why ingon ana day na siya. So when you have that certain ing ana day na siya, that is why, that means your teacher probably successfully provided you with a comprehensible input. So we have here a comprehensible input. For example, we say hello, okay? And if we have so high affective filter, it's gonna affect the way we understand, or the way we grasp this. And this part here, this is now the stage of language acquisition. Somebody, you hear it, hello, okay? And then there is a factor affecting, that would be your affective filter. If very low, for example, you have low fear, or you have no fear, the anxiety level is really low and all that, but you have high motivation, that means you have low affective filter. But if you have all high, like high in an anxiety level, it's too high, your fear is too high, but your motivation also is very low, so it goes hand in hand, right? And that would hinder you from really acquiring fully this comprehensible input that is given to you, or that is fed to you. So this one here, this is now the language acquisition. Okay, this is now the stage of language acquisition. And when you acquire that certain word or vocab or whatever it is, there is already the acquired knowledge. And once you have the acquired knowledge in your brain, of course, class, you store it. And by the time you need it, you are just going to get it from your brain and let it out from your mouth. And that is now our output. Okay, so this portion here, this is now our learned knowledge. We learn this. Okay, and monitoring, somehow when we say monitoring, it's our constant checking if what we learned is correct or not. Are we still learning it correctly, or is there any change? Are there any changes? Do we have to unlearn it? So things like that. So here, this is now our learned knowledge, and our learned knowledge, we are going to use it when we are going to get it from our brain, and we are just going to take it from our pocket and then use it. That is now the output. And this portion here, our learned knowledge, we constantly do some monitoring if it is okay or not. Are there changes, things like that. Because as we grow older, class, of course, we learn so much. And if we keep on learning so much and much, then that means there are things that we thought were correct before, but now it's no longer. So that's why there is constant monitoring. So this is how it works. Okay, so next. Now, according to Krashen's theory of language acquisition, we give learners this kind of input in order for them to acquire language naturally. So we really have to give our students the comprehensible input rather than learn it consciously. No. So when we say here comprehensible input, I already told you that. No. So of course, if the input is comprehensible, might as well our affective filter is also low. Okay. And there is this language acquisition device. Actually, Noam Chomsky um, talk about this lad in his nativism theory. And language acquisition device, it is something that is already wired in our brain, that we humans, we already have this things or paraphernalia in our brain that can really process language. And then we need our lad. Okay, because there is this certain portion in our brain that this portion of the brain is for this, for grammar, for the syntax, for the rules. Okay, you can go to the UG or the Universal Grammar of Chomsky, and this LAD will also be discussed. So, nevertheless, LAD, language acquisition device, it is the device wired already in our brain that has the ability to store and to process or to work on what we have acquired or the inputs that we put in our brain. And passing this LAD, or our language acquisition device. That's why we have now our acquired language. And as what I told you, our acquired knowledge, we use it. Because if that is acquired, that means we know it already. And when the situation would, require us to use it, we are going to get it. And that's why it would be in the form of output. So here, this is our learned knowledge, and we do constant monitoring of the knowledge that we acquired. So this is the input hypothesis model of L2 learning and production. It's actually adapted from Krashen in 1982. Okay, so this is the theory of language acquisition. So comprehensible input is very important according to Krashen, because it's the beginning of everything. If from the beginning the student does not understand, then there's nothing that he or she can retrieve when he or she speaks, and when that specific situation would require him or her to use that specific expression. Pag wa niya na nasamtan, it's difficult. For example, the teacher selects a reading text for upper intermediate level learners that is from a lower advanced level course books. If you notice, the students here are upper intermediate level, so lower. Their level is a bit lower. And then the source or the material was taken from one step higher level ng course book, which is lower advanced level. Now, this is a good example, because as teachers class, we believe that this will give comprehensible input to help them acquire more language. Why? Because since it's one step advanced, so there are more things that they will be able to learn, okay? More vocabulary, more situations maybe that they haven't come across, and they will learn about that, and that would be our comprehensible input. So same with what I told you, diba? For example, I am discussing now. It's very difficult for you to really grasp my discussion. So I am going to create or use an example. And then through that example, that is our comprehensible input, because I am now trying to let you acquire that specific knowledge that is at first very difficult for you to grasp or to understand, but because of the comprehensible input that I used, let's say I give you an example, now you were able to acquire that certain phenomenon, or you were able to acquire that language because of comprehensible input. Same with this teacher. So because if he or she is going to take reading text that is also from the upper intermediate level, it could be that it's very easy for them. Okay, because it's within their level. It's not also that we are going to give them very difficult level. So the reason, class, why we need to have comprehensible input, it's because students at the very beginning may not have really a clear grasp or understanding of the concept that you presented. That is why kinahanglan nato ang comprehensible input. Okay, so in the classroom, trying to understand language slightly above their level encourages learners to use natural learning strategies, such as guessing words from context and inferring meaning. Okay, so as the example suggests, a teacher actually needs to know the level of the learners very well in order to select comprehensible input. And in a large class of mixed ability, different learners will need different texts. So this is now the problem if you have this huge class size. Okay, if it's a huge class size, you really have a variety of learners and their level may be different. Though we say that they belong to, let's say, all are in grade 12, no, sila tanan, but we really don't know their level. Had individual level is still different. There are other students nga advanced. There are also other students that really need so much attention because he or she just cannot really use or just really don't understand it. So with that, it should be considered because it should be considered because your comprehensible input should matter or should differ. Diba? Kay lahi man pud ni ang gamiton nimo nga comprehensible input for your learners with this level and also for the other learners with a different level. That is why if it's a large class of mixed ability, mixed comprehension level, then they will be needing different texts. Okay. And then the best methods to supply comprehensible input is number one, in low anxiety situations. So don't like force your learners really to learn to the extent that you are going to be like imposing some corporal punishment or really, shout your student, and then because that would provide or that would give them fear, and they would react to that, and they would feel so little about themselves. They would lost actually self-esteem, their confidence, and they probably may end up just hating learning that language. And if it already ends that far, then it's very difficult, because what the learner would see in that, it would be like, she or he just hate learning that language, and he or she does not really see it beneficial at all. So it's really in language learning or language acquisition, it's different if the learner here really has the motivation, and at the same time he or she has low anxiety situations. Okay, learning language is never easy, and there are so many factors affecting why the student or why the learners cannot really learn the language. So containing messages that students really want to hear. No? Of course, we want to appreciate our students. We also want to let them feel that they are safe. We would also want to let them feel that they are not alone, and that us being their teachers are always there to guide them. Through that, they would be able to appreciate and hopefully would try to um, spend more time and effort for that. Take note, class, these methods do not force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready. So recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input, um, and not from forcing and correcting productions. Actually, it's really wrong if when the learners, speak, and then when we see them, committing mistakes, wrong. When we say them committing mistakes from time to time, we always cut them. Cut. Oh, stop. That's not how it should be done. And then cut, cut, cut. No, that would really that would bring so much problem in the emotional level of the learner, because the learner, it's either there are two possible things that's gonna happen. It's either the learner here will really do his or her very best to prove to that instructor or teacher that he can really do it. So it's either he will strive so hard. The second is it's either he's just gonna say that, well, I am just really like this, and I know my teacher knows it, so why should I bother? Okay, I always get scolding and all that thing. So that is why we really have to make sure that our affective filter is really low. And of course, we also recognize the efforts of our learners, and that we don't force and correct right away when they try to produce. Let them use it. Remember, class, when you were in elementary learning English, was it really perfect? No. We, even up until high school, up until college, we still commit mistakes. Okay, we still commit mistakes in language speaking, writing, listening, reading, because there is one thing that is certain, and that is we will never make it perfect. Even native speakers, they actually don't make things so perfect. Well, in terms of speaking, of course, but how about the writing and the other macro skills? So nobody is perfect. So just let and give the learners a chance to really use the language freely, and stop, correcting and keep on correcting. Because if it's be because when you keep on correcting, actually your learner, the learner here becomes so confined in that box, and then eventually that learner will be so shy, and will definitely have no self-confidence at all. So he or she would be shy to participate. He or she would hate that language. He or she would not use that language anymore, because the experience is not that pleasant. So in the real world, conversations with sympathetic native speakers who are willing to help the acquirer understand are very helpful. So the native speakers, in the real world, especially in the conversation, okay, conversation, and then conversational English, or the authentic way how we use English. So we have to make sure that we would come across with a native speaker using English who would help us understand, because our L2 here is English. That's why our focus would be English language. So this time around, class, since of course we talked about that, it's all about the SLA theory of Krashen. So who is Stephen Krashen? We already talked about this one in the previous unit as well, but I would just like to reiterate. Stephen Krashen, he is from the University of Southern California and is an expert in the field of linguistics. He specialized in the theories of language acquisition and development. So this is his area of expertise, acquisition and development. And actually his recent research has involved so much about non-English and bilingual language acquisition. So just like us, Filipinos, we are bilingual, but I could say we are multilingual because we speak, for Cebuanos, we are multilingual because we speak Cebuano Visayan, we speak our national language, which is Filipino, and we speak also English. So since in 1980, he has already published well over 100 books and articles and has been invited to deliver over 300 lectures at universities throughout the United States and Canada. So this is how influential Stephen Krashen is in the field of language acquisition and development, and also in the field of linguistics. So as English majors, you have to know these people. One is Stephen Krashen. You also need to know Noam Chomsky, who is John Searle. So many. How about the code switching? No? We have so many theories, and we need to know them because we have to be guided by their principles as well, especially because in the second language acquisition, so many theories in second language acquisition or language acquisition. So the theory of Krashen, class, actually, he came up with 5 hypotheses in his second language acquisition theory. And what are these 5 hypotheses? So these 5 hypotheses are the acquisition learning hypothesis. The second would be the monitor hypothesis. Third is the input hypothesis. The fourth would be affective filter hypothesis. And the fifth one is the natural order hypothesis. And in the middle, of course, it's the second language acquisition theory, or the SLA theory of Stephen Krashen. So, of course, this is our father, as to how it's being, described in our notes. Our father, Stephen Krashen, this is him. And this is his first theory, acquisition learning hypothesis. So we learned earlier that when we say acquisition, it is subconscious in nature, and it occurs because of the natural communication that is being experienced by the learner. Well, when we say learning, it is formal instruction. The moment you go to school, you learn that language, that is learning. And what is really best, class? Both are really good. It's a combination of both. But the thing that you have to have first is acquisition. Just like how we did it in English, because our media influences and more or less our Cebuano Visayan as well. The second would be monitor hypothesis. So acquisition, when you are in the stage of acquisition, you are the adherence initiator, while in the learning, class, because in this stage already, when you learn, you try to correct already what you have acquired. So in the acquisition, you are the adherence initiator. In the learning, you already monitor and edit. So it's like what you have learned, and then what are the things that you should not learn, or what are the mistakes that you have learned. So we call it the monitor or the editor. That's the learning, the phase of learning. And then we have overusers, okay? The fluency of overusers suffers actually. The underusers, what suffers here would be the accuracy. And then the optimal users, it's balance. And the third one, we have input hypothesis. So input hypothesis, only acquisition. And then here in the input hypothesis, we're going to take a look at very closely comprehensible input. So comprehensible input, this is your concept, this is the I, plus you added something to make it understandable to your learners. Okay, and then the fourth one is affective filter hypothesis. So facilitative but non-causal role. So here, very important, the learner's motivation, self-confidence, and anxiety. If the motivation is high, self-confidence is high, and then the anxiety level is very low, that means low affective filter. But if the motivation, class, is very low, self-confidence very low, but anxiety is very high, that is high affective filter. And high affective filter would impede the learning or acquisition of language. Okay, that means would hinder. And then the 5 would be the natural order hypothesis. So when learning grammar or when learning English or any type of language, it always comes in a structure, and then it always follows rather in a structure or a natural order. It's applicable that way. We begin with the simple and then we go with the complex, and that's how it is. So let's try to take a look at now the first hypothesis, the acquisition learning. As what I mentioned earlier, when we say acquisition, this is subconscious, while learning is formal in nature. So acquisition, you got it from the environment. Learning is when you are in school and you learn, something. So according to Krashen, there are two independent systems of foreign language performance. First, we have the acquired system, okay? And the second, the learned system. Of course, the acquired system is those that are, that you have when you have the acquisition stage. And when you have already the learning stage, that's the learned system. So it doesn't mean actually, class, that acquisition should always come first before learning. Ideally, when we were young, we need to have that, we need to undergo first the level of acquisition. But now that we are already old, or like adults, young adults, so what's gonna happen is it could be simultaneously done. So now you acquired something and also you will learn, especially that you are studying now in school. And then the acquired system or acquisition, it is the product, as I said, of a subconscious process, very similar to the process children undergo when they acquire their first language. So when we acquire our first language, we don't go to school, but we learn it from our parents, we learn it from the people around us and our environment. And it requires meaningful interaction in the target language. That's why it's called natural communication. And we concentrate not in the form here, but rather in the communicative act. Our purpose here is to convey message and to communicate. So the learned system or learning, it is the product of formal instruction. So now we are in the learned system, a product of formal instruction, and it actually comprises a conscious process. Now, for example, when we go to school, we learn already about grammar rules, about the parts of speech and the like. So with that, we already have a knowledge, and we are now trying to correct or add on to what we learned. So a deductive approach in a teacher-centered setting produces learning, while an inductive approach in a student-centered setting leads to acquisition. So monitor hypothesis class, it explains the relationship between acquisition and learning, and it actually defines the influence of the latter on the former. So the learning here will influence the acquisition. Learning would influence the acquisition. The monitoring function is the practical result of the learned grammar. Okay, so the monitoring function here is the practical result of the learned grammar. According to Krashen, the acquisition system is the utterance initiator. Okay, so as what we already mentioned, utterance initiator, acquisition, bot editor or monitor that is learning. And the monitor, it acts in a planning. So the monitor hypothesis, it already acts in the planning, editing, correcting function. And there are three specific conditions that should be met. First, the second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal. So should be able to have sufficient time before you are going to speak it, or before you dispose that, okay, that expression or that word. They focus on form or think about correctness. When you are going to do it, you focus in form and you think about correctness, that is, you monitor. And then if you monitor, you should know the rule. How would you be able to have the monitor or to edit if you don't know the rule? Okay, and then the role of conscious learning is somewhat limited in second language performance. Okay, the role of conscious learning is somewhat limited in second language performance. According to Krashen, the role of the monitor is minor, being used only to correct deviations from normal speech and to give speech a more polished appearance. So that's actually the role. That's actually the role of monitor. Okay, it polished and it creates less or it corrects deviations that we can find in the piece, and we could be able to come up with a more accurate speech, okay, and also polished speech. So there is individual variation among language learners with regard to monitor use. So there are people, class, who all the time, just correct and correct and correct. That means overusers. And that is not good, huh? Those learners who also does not refer and, does not correct, use their conscious knowledge to edit, that is also other users, like very limited lang. And those learners that use the monitor appropriately, they know when to use it to edit and the likes, that we call them optimal users. So dapat ang atong target would be here, the optimal users. Okay, I hope it's clear to you, no? When you keep on correcting, no, tanan na lang halos i-correct, correct, that is overusers. That is not also normal. If you also like does not really care, you don't correct, underuser po, that is also not good. So as much as possible, moderation or balance lang. Do it appropriately, that is optimal users. And the third hypothesis, we have the input hypothesis. Here, of course, we talked about the comprehensible input. So input hypothesis questions attempt to explain how the learner acquires a second language and how second language takes place. Input hypothesis class is only concerned with acquisition and not learning. So according to this hypothesis, the learner improves and progresses along the natural order when he or she receives second language input that is one step beyond his or her current stage of linguistic competence. So for example, it is really important that the student or the learner's level is this one. So make sure that when we are going to provide them with something, it should be higher of their level. Dili kay pirmi na lang sa ilang level, because if we just stick to their level, that means they're not gonna learn. Okay, learning wouldn't, or acquisition would not be possible, because how would they still be able to acquire when they already know it, when they have already acquired it? Okay, and for example, if a learner is at stage I, then acquisition takes place if you give them a comprehensible input that belongs to I plus one. So the plus one here, it's the additional. Okay, it is the additional, one step level. So this is comprehensible input. And oftentimes when we say comprehensible input as well, because the concept that you are trying to share with your learners is not that familiar, of course, you will be making use of ways. Okay, so comprehensible input class, it should be something that belongs to level I plus one. So for example, when you give a certain topic to your learner, it should be not, not within the level, but it should be higher or one step higher of his level. It should not also be very, very high that the learner could no longer relate and would no longer appreciate it. So comprehensible input, the reason, class, that you need to have examples, you need to have simpler way of saying, or you need to have more way to explain it, because it is something that is new to them, di ba? Kay I man ang level sa learner, and then you have to have plus one. So that's why it's comprehensible input. Okay, so I plus one. And then when you are going to discuss this concept, of course, how would they be able to really grasp it and understand it fully is to make use of examples. You also make use of analogy. So that is still be part of the comprehensible input by the time you are explaining something. Okay, so since not all of the learners can be at the same level of linguistic competence at the same time, Krashen suggests that natural communicative input is the key to designing a syllabus, ensuring in this way that each learner will really receive I plus one input that is appropriate for his or her current stage of linguistic competence. Diba? Kaya niingon si Stephen Krashen, we cannot assume, or we are not sure for sure the learners do not have the same level of linguistic competence all at once. So we have to make sure that in our syllabus we make this natural communicative input. So that's why we let our students be engaged, or we let them we give them opportunity to be able to communicate naturally with their learners or with their peers, and through that they would be able to learn from each other, because it doesn't mean, Manggod class, that one student is similar with the rest. No, they have different level. Even if they are of the same grade level. Okay. So next would be the affective filter. Affective filter hypothesis class, it embodies Krashen's view that a number of affective variables play facilitative but non-causal role in second language acquisition. So it would facilitate us. So these variables would include motivation. Variables to be included would be motivation, self-confidence, anxiety, and personality traits. So Krashen claims that learners with high motivation or tasking motivation ang learners, self-confidence, good self-image, low level of anxiety, and extroversion are better equipped for success in second language acquisition. Kanisha in general, this would be meaning na low ang yung affective filter. Basta taas yung motivation, he or she also has self-confidence, good self-image, he or she has low level of anxiety and extroversion, then that means low affective filter and has more chance of succeeding in second language acquisition. But if ang bata has high affective filter, like ang definition sa high affective filter would be low motivation, low self-esteem, very anxious, introvert, there's so many inhibitions, it can really raise to the affective filter, and that would form a mental block in his or her brain, and that would prevent him or her from welcoming the comprehensible input that he or she would be able to use for acquisition. And then when the filter is up, okay, it definitely impedes language acquisition. So it hinders learners do not learn or learners do not acquire that language. So dapat, it should be low affective filter. And then we have here natural order hypothesis. This is the last hypothesis. It is actually based on research findings, and they call it the least, or it is the least important of all hypotheses, but it is still part of it. It means, class, that when we learn grammatical structures, it actually follows an order. And it is true. Even if we go back to the theory of Chomsky, nativism theory, the universal grammar and all that, we always begin with the simple and then going to the complex. And our brain would be filled first with the simple before we go to the higher level. For a given language, some grammatical structures tend to be acquired early while others are acquired late. And this order seemed to be independent of the learner's age. So it could be the L1 background is, and then conditions of exposure, of course. And then although the agreement between individual acquirers was not always 100% in the studies, there were statistically significant similarities that reinforce the existence of a natural order of language acquisition. So nevertheless, it's really like in order. It really comes in order. In fact, in our course books, that's what we see, right? We don't learn the complex topics, but rather it always begins with the simple until we build our foundation, until we go up and up and up, until we reach a certain level of advance, and etc. So Krashen, however, points out that the implication of the natural order hypothesis is not that a language program syllabus should be based on the order found in the studies. So in fact, class, he rejects grammatical sequencing when the goal is language acquisition. Okay, class, so that's it for the 5 hypotheses. And that's it for the SLA theory, or the second language acquisition theory of Stephen Krashen. And don't forget, I hope it's clear to you, the 5 hypotheses we have first. Number 1 would be the acquisition learning hypothesis. We also have monitor hypothesis, input hypothesis, affective filter hypothesis, and we do have the last, the natural order hypothesis. So thank you very much, class. If you have a question, you can ask it on our chat box or our GC or in the Google Classroom. You can also comment down below if you want. And if I have time, of course, I will go to the comments that you are giving and I will answer that. And also, good luck on your exam. And I hope the second language acquisition theory of Stephen Krashen is very clear, and that you won't be confused anymore on the theory of Stephen Krashen, who is one of the very famous, or one of the famous linguists, and one of the famous, researchers or proponents of second language acquisition and development. So thank you very much, class, for being with me our entire midterm, and I will see you on our first unit or topic for the final term. That would be unit 3. That would be unit 3. I will see you all, and for now, enjoy learning, and at the same time, God bless on your exam. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. See you next video lecture.